welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Heiderstein, and thank you for joining me today on March 11th this year for the daily reading of James Allen's Daily Meditations. And it's been a great first 10 days of March. Let's see what the 11th day brings us. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, as this will be the first time I read it on the podcast with y'all. So I'm looking forward to it. It's really been just a fantastic whole year's worth of first 3 months worth of reading so far. So I'm excited to see where this brings us and how it continues to progress. So here we go for March 11th of James Allen's Daily Meditations. Error is sifted away. The gold of truth remains. Spiritual transmutation consists in an entire reversal of the ordinary self-seeking attitude of mind towards men and things. And this reversal brings about an entirely new set of experiences. Thus, the desire for a certain pleasure is abandoned, cut off at its source, and not allowed to have any place in the consciousness, but the mental force which that desire represented is not annihilated. It is transferred to a higher region of thought, transmuted into a purer form of energy. The law of conservation of energy obtains universally in mind as in matter, and the force shut off in lower directions is liberated in higher realms of spiritual activity. The clear and cloudless heights of spiritual enlightenment. This one. I really like this one. You know, it's just talking about how when we start changing the perspective of things and we start changing our behaviors, it frees us up. And that energy we were putting towards that, it actually frees us to a higher level of achievement. It gives us more energy and more direction towards enlightenment. It gives us the opportunity to pursue that further. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I think it's a great way to open it, too. Error is sifted away. The gold of truth remains. This isn't if the error, error is sifted away. Like, slowly and surely, as we press everything through the sift, the sieve, I think it's called, right? And it's sifted through and refined, right? All the impurities will come out. All the selfishness, the self-centeredness will come out of it. And we'll be left with golden truths. We'll be left with the golden practices and principles and these things that allow us to achieve higher levels of attainment, of enlightenment, and spiritual progress. It's quite an amazing thing to actually be a part of. He goes on to say spiritual transmutation. Transmute is to take something and turn it into something different, right? So it's the same mass or same matter or same, in this form he's going to equate it to energy, but it's changed and becomes something entirely different. Spiritual transmutation consists in an entire reversal of the ordinary self-seeking attitude of mind towards men and things, and this reversal brings about an entirely new set of experiences. So it's taking the energy that ordinarily would be a self-seeking attitude of mind, like pursuing things purely of self-interest, pursuing and taking actions that are completely and only self-centered. And taking that attitude of mind towards men and spiritual men and things. So not just people, but the actions we take with the material things in our lives as well. Like every aspects of the external world, and the reversal brings about an entirely new set of experiences, right? So when we take those self-seeking motives and change them from being reliant on things externally to us, we get an entirely new set of experiences he says here. And it goes on to say, thus the desire for a certain pleasure is abandoned, cut off at its source, and is not allowed to have any place in the consciousness. So the first part of this sentence is, when we look at the desire, when we have for whatever it might be, it could be certain food and decadence, or it could be sexual, it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be relationships, gambling, whatever that pleasure is, that desire for whatever the pleasure is being sought, that is desired, when it's cut off at its source, right? When we do the work, when we stop the behavior, and we look at the thinking, and then we change the thought around it, the belief about it, right? We understand why we do it. We change ourselves internally. When we do that internal work, it's cut off at its source, not allowed to have any place in our consciousness anymore. So we've removed it. And what he's actually saying here is not necessarily removal, but he's going to go on to say, I believe, but a repurposement of the energy. The second half of the sentence, but the mental force which the desire represented is not annihilated. It is transferred to a higher region of thought, transmuted into a purer form of energy. So we're taking all of that energy and emotion and everything and cutting it off at the source, and then we're left with this energy. We're left with this whole, almost, that if it's not repurposed, if it's not transmuted, right? That's what he's saying here. The easiest thing for it to do is go backwards, right? Like, again, I think I talked about it before. When I wanted to stop lying, I didn't say I want to stop lying. I said I want to start being honest. We need to repurpose it for a higher value. We need to repurpose these things, the energy behind things. And instead of saying, I don't want to hate this person anymore, say, I want to love this person. I want to forgive this person. I want to be hopeful instead of despair. These are very important things to know the difference of. And that's this transmutation. He's taking the energy that was behind the selfishness, self-centered thought, this negative thinking pattern, move it back and repurpose it for a spiritual enlightenment, for that spiritual purpose, principle, value, whatever it goes into. It's not, he says, that the mental force which the desire represented is not annihilated. The energy's still there. What we were putting it towards isn't there anymore. We've removed that. We want to change that. It has been changed. Now we need it transferred to a higher region of thought. What do we want to do with that instead? What do we do with that instead? Transmuted into a pure form of energy. That sifting, it talked about it before, right? When we purify that energy, and it says, like the opening line said, the gold of truth remains. When all the impurities and the error is washed away, removed, the gold of truth remains, the purity of truth remains. The law of conservation of energy obtains universally in mind as in matter. You know, the energy never breaks down. There is always energy. It's just transferring from one place to another, right? It's just moving its form and its structure, but it all still has to be there. That's what he's talking about here. That law the energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It's just transferred and changed. And the force, and so he goes on I'll just read the whole thing again. The law of conservation of energy obtains universally in mind as in matter, and the force shut off in lower directions is liberated in higher realms of spiritual activity. So what he's saying, it's kind of, when you stop looking down, you start looking up. When we cut off those lower nature things and we start looking up into the spiritual realm and spiritual attainment. And yesterday we talked about aspiration and aspiring to have these qualities of character and these qualities in life, and this destiny and this fate that we have influence in, right? 'Cause we talked about that recently. That self-will shapes this fate, right? I think it was early in March, like about a week ago or so. It's shut off in lower directions and liberated in higher realms of spiritual activity. It's moved up. Thank God for that, because it's exhausting trying to take those lower animalistic desires and selfish perspectives all the time. And I like the way he finished today's as well. The clear and cloudless heights of spiritual enlightenment. The truth and spiritual truths and spiritual messages and values and the whole spiritual world is actually quite clear. The truth and the actions based around it, even, I think we talked about, was that yesterday? I believe it was yesterday. When we aspire to something better, we get sometimes, even though extremely fleeting, we get those moments of clarity where we know exactly what we have to do. There's no question, there's no fog. But eventually we get in our own ways. Eventually the fog comes in. Eventually we start manipulating again. But true spiritual enlightenment, true spiritual paths, it's clear, it's cloudless. There's no obstruction, there's no manipulation, distortion, illusion, delusion. It's clear as day, it's clear. It's completely in focus. What a beautiful thing that is. So, I'll go ahead and I'll end it right there. Thank y'all for joining me again for March 11th reading of James Allen Meditation. It's some hope or some direction, really, on how to get more energy and forward motion towards spiritual workings and doing that spiritual work. When we do the heavy lifting, so we'll stop looking down, we'll be able to repurpose that energy to looking up and striving and aspiring and desiring to be more righteous, to be more godlike, to do more good, to be of service, to be that, to get that attainment of selflessness. So, great reading today, though. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to what the 12th reading will bring us. So jump on back with me tomorrow. All right? Until next time. Thanks.